The Last of Us TV show on HBO is finally out. The first episode was the other week, and I've managed to watch episode 2, and I must say, the show has been fantastic so far. Initially, I did have concerns with the show in terms of some of the casting choices they made, some of the changes they said they had made to the story, including spores being removed from the show, and an extended look at life before the apocalypse and all of that. However, every change they've made I've actually really liked. I've enjoyed the introductory sequences of the 2 episodes, the first one being the 1960s odd TV show talking about the cordyceps fungus, and then episode 2's cold open, which had us see a doctor getting to look at the fungus in the humans and seeing how the infection initially started. It's all really good, it's all really interesting, and they've managed to expand on not only the world of The Last of Us, but the actual disease of cordyceps itself, and I think that's something we're going to see a lot more as the show goes on. And that's not to mention all the rest of the good things the show's been doing. Bella and Pedro's performances throughout the show have been absolutely fantastic. They've really nailed the aspects of Joel and Ellie that we needed to see in a show like this, and the recreation of scenes from the game and the overall story that they've managed to tell here so far has been great. It's really lent itself well to the TV show look compared to how it had to play out in the game. In some cases, I'd even say better. The introduction was absolutely fantastic, and getting to see Joel's PTSD and how hardened he actually is, more so than just being a grumpy old man, has been a real pleasure to behold from Pedro. I think he's really nailed this character and understands who Joel is and what he does. But despite all these positive things that I have to say about the game, and this is me, I've played all of The Last of Us content. I absolutely adore The Last of Us Part 1, or the first game, or whatever we're calling it, the current story that we're in with the TV show. And while I initially didn't like Part 2, I have since come to really appreciate it and actually enjoy it a lot more now. Obviously, Neil does know what he's doing with the story that he's trying to tell here, and his recreation of that in the TV show has just been great so far. But as always, the internet has to be the internet, and I've seen a myriad of people with different problems regarding the show. This has ranged from things like the casting of Joel and Ellie. I think the casting's a great choice. I think Bella Ramsey nails Ellie's character, you know, the smartass, the survivor, the naivety, the jokes, all that there's really nailed perfectly. And as I said before, Pedro's portrayal of Joel, he's really nailed that character as well. We've seen Tommy's character, we've seen Tess, we've seen Marlene, and we've also seen Robert. All of whom have been a pleasure to see. Marlene's performance, as she is the same actress from the games, has been, you know, spot on. Tess as well has been a standout, I thought, in these first 2 episodes. It's been great to see her and Joel bounce off each other, as well as the way she bounces off with other characters, with Ellie, with Marlene. It's all really, really cool, and they've managed to expand on Tess's character and her relationship with Joel and who she is throughout these episodes. But there also seems to be people who have issues with the changes they've made to the source material. There are a good few, to be fair. Some of the ones I've noticed is obviously the years have changed, where the initial outbreak was in 2013 and the main game took place in 2033. This game jumps everything back by 10 years, so that the year of the show is our current year of 2023, and the pre-outbreak was in 2003. As well as that, some stuff with the intros changed. Obviously, not a lot of the environments look exactly the same as they do in the game, something that would have been impossible to achieve, mind you, so all the changes they've made have worked well in the story. You know, from the look of Joel's house to the initial infection scene of Sarah waking up out of bed and having to deal with the infected before Joel gets there, as well as with Tommy and Joel being with Tommy, and the reason Joel not being in the house when Sarah woke up. As well as that, then we get to see a lot more like Boston life. They've expanded Joel and Tessa's relationship to have a lot more of a romantic undertone to it. The two clearly are together in some capacity, more so than they were just business partners in the first game. And obviously they've changed the way some of these events have played out, so covered events from the prologue right into the entrance of Boston, and how that all played out was slightly different, not one-to-one accurate, but it lended itself well to the TV show format and had a callback to a character we've seen previously. We got to see Joel absolutely go ham on that one guy. But there's also been changes with the infected and that, so obviously we have now the tendrils coming out of their mouths and that seed themselves underground like real fungus, and that's how the infected can sometimes know where you are, even if they're a mile away. I really love that change. I think that's amazing. You know, you have to be careful with every step you take in this world, and I absolutely adore that. You can see why that wouldn't be in something like the game, because that as a mechanic could have been like really annoying. But here in the TV show, it adds a lot of tension. You can see when Joel kills the infected in the Capitol building, you can see the way the tendrils are triggered, and that way that travels on through to the big horde of infected we saw earlier. And the tendrils themselves are absolutely disgusting. I think it's a great change. It adds such a really cool scare factor to the standard infected, the way they have these tendrils reaching out of their mouths trying to grasp onto the next host. And the scene with Tess's death at the end, while a bit weird in the way it played out, was absolutely brilliant on making you feel really uncomfortable with how these infected pass on said infection. But as I say, people have had problems with this. I really don't understand it, because all these changes were made to facilitate the fact that we're going to a TV show from a video game. I don't think anybody really wanted to see Joel dying 34 times in the first clicker encounter. But then transversely, people have had issues with the lack of changes. And in another subsection of the community, they seem to think that the fact that the show does shots from the games one-to-one is not good, and it shouldn't be like that. While yes, some dialogue does feel a touch stinted, it's literally like one line in a really good 2-episode show so far out of the 9. And if they keep up the track record of the way they're going, it's gonna be great. I have seen people had a bit of a complaint with the save who you can save line, and while yes, it is a bit corny, it's a bit cringy, it still makes sense. You know, Tess has obviously been infected, has seen that Ellie is not obviously infected despite her bite marks and has her immunity. You know, she obviously sees a spark of hope there, and that's like the whole point of Tess in those sequences. This is why she wants to push the mission forward and get Ellie to the Fireflies, because at this point Marlene's obviously dying of the infection, but she sees hope in Ellie. She sees hope for the future and hope for Joel with Ellie. So that's the whole point of her character, and that's her having to tell him because he hasn't been able to save people so far. And we get to see now in the show, Tess understands that, and Tess is trying to bring that bit forward out of him to make sure, you know, save who you can save. You know, this girl is your chance. You have to save her. And I just think that's really good. I really love the way it comes off in the show. But yeah, a lot of the show is shot for shot similar. We have the scene of Ellie and Joel getting to the safe house while they wait for Tess. It's almost line for line, shot for shot, very, very, very similar to the game, but that lends itself to it. We get these really good callbacks to the game with direct comparisons and direct lines and all of that there. But you know, that's what you'd want. They have a great mix of not changing the show's core themes or the scenes that are near perfect, letting them do their thing, just have them be told by these new actors. And you also then get the changes that are necessary to facilitate a slight retelling of the story. And I just think it all works really well. Yeah, I think people are just trying to be pedantic about the show, honestly and truly. Whether that's people that were disillusioned with part 2 and the way it was helmed, or if it's just people need to have something to complain about, because if you can't complain about the video game adaptation, what can you complain about? And it's really just baffling to me. Like, we finally have got a really good show from a video game that we haven't managed to get ever so far. So getting to have a really good show that can tell the story of the original game while being able to change things and have it still make sense in the story, and you can still know that you're just looking at a retelling of the same story, it all works supremely well. So people having these issues with, people have problems with these changes, as well as people have problems with the lack of changes. It's completely baffling to me how you can have two people with opposite opinions about a show, because usually it's one or the other, and it really just doesn't make sense to me. The show is good, just enjoy the show, for fuck's sake. But honestly, I think this is just a case of people, you know, people can't be happy. They have to nitpick and find excuse to have a problem with something, with a piece of media. But I'm here to tell you, and this is me telling you now, the Last of Us TV show is a damn good TV show, and I am completely back in love with The Last of Us. All the same emotions I felt back in 2013 having booted up that game on the PS3 are evoked throughout this show. And if they can continue to do that and continue to give me that same feeling, then they're doing everything right. And honestly, anybody who has issues with this show, they're just kidding themselves, and they just don't want to be happy. That's all I gotta say.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs.
I sell hardcore drugs.
This has been a bit of a ramble, bit of a rant. So I appreciate if you're still listening to me this far. And if you are listening this far, you might want to listen to me ramble more. So I do have links down below for my Twitch, where I do a lot of streaming and chatting shit with all the gamers and discussing games and all of that there. And I love doing that. I love talking random crap and rambling off onto different tangents, usually about Assassin's Creed or The Last of Us or whatever else takes my mind for the day. But you can join me over there for that. And, you know, I have to do the obligatory, you know, if you like this type of stuff, then, you know, subscribe to the channel. Continue to come and join me for these random rambles and rants about different stuff happening in my favorite game shit, basically. But thanks, folks. It's much appreciated. If you did enjoy the video, give it a wee like. If you have an opinion about the TV show, leave it in the comments down below. I would love to hear what all you folk think of The Last of Us TV show. I think it's perfect so far. I think it's done everything it needed to do right, and as long as they continue that, I think it's going to be fantastic.